Randolph County Asylum. This is the third asylum to be built here in Randolph County. And this place closed in 2006. And when they closed the place down, it was being run as a nursing home. So when they closed it down, they auctioned off most of the things that were in the building, but we did find artifacts up in the attic, and those are all in the table here. So if we come over here and look, you'll see some of the old medicinal bottles. These two are some of the slate shingles that were on the original roof here. There's some implements from the county farm, because for most of this place's history, it was a 350-acre working farm. There's also some of the wood with the old-fashioned square nails through it, a cane. This over here is actually a toilet paper dispenser of all things, back from when toilet paper came in flat sheets. And then we have this in the middle. Now, you were watching videos. You said you don't remember what that is, but do you have any guesses what it is?
I know this is a crutch.
No.
Is it not?
It is not.
What?
You're on the right track, but it's not a crutch.
It's a false leg.
Oh, yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
it is a peg leg.
Yeah.
And the last thing in here is this. And I'm interested to see what an Irishman's reaction is to this. Americans all laugh when I tell them that that's technical name is a bunghole plug.
Yep.
Okay, you get the giggles too.
Yep.
All right, but it's actually a cork for a whiskey bottle, a whiskey barrel. So,
Which has a big bowl.
barrel, not a bottle,
Yeah.
a barrel. So that's the artifacts that we've found here. And there's several other things through the building that are original to the building, and I'll make sure I point those out as we're going through.
Sweet.
Yeah.
So if you want to have a seat, we will chat in here for a little bit before we get moving. Is that okay? Or you can
Yeah.
stand, and I'm going to sit down. So as I said, this is the third asylum to be built here in Randolph County. The first was built in 1851, but the history of these places actually goes back to the 1820s and the writing of our state's constitution, which has a clause in it that says that every county would establish a county home to care for poor and indigent people. So when you hear the word asylum, a lot of people think of a madhouse. That's not what this place was. It was a place that provided asylum, a safe space for people that needed it. So that would include the mentally and physically handicapped, the chronically ill, the extreme poor, and just people who were generally not wanted. So this provided a safe home for that. It's actually the start of state welfare here in Indiana. So we had people who were here for a matter of months, and then we had other people who were here basically their entire lives. And we'll be meeting some of them as we go through the building as well. So the first asylum, as I said, was built in 1851. It was built on this foundation. And in 1851, there's no electricity, so they're using candle lights, oil lamps, wood stove for cooking and heating. In 1857, that building burned to the ground. There were 19 residents in here at that time. No one was hurt in the fire. Everybody got out okay, but now the county had 19 homeless people that they need to get back under a roof. So these places were funded by the counties, and anytime you get government involved, you can guarantee probably a couple of things. Quick, cheap, possibly stupid. So the government is involved in building the second asylum, and they built it on the other side of the drive. And to get it up quickly and cheaply, they fired the bricks on site. But they were in such a rush to get the building up that they didn't fire the bricks correctly. They never developed the protective glaze they needed. So as they were putting the building up, it is melting in the weather. And they're having to take down sections and rebuild them. It just made them work faster. They didn't actually correct any of the things that they were doing wrong. They just put it up faster. So they get the building up, they move everybody in, and the building keeps melting around the people that are in there. So there's records from the late 1880s that show that the women on the west side of the building were using bedclothes and pillows to plug holes in the walls and to hold the windows in place.
Wow.
The county commissioners at that time apparently couldn't be bothered to come out and look at the building, but they're running into the problem of these places are run for county residents who have family that live in the county, and they're coming out and visiting and seeing these deplorable conditions, and they're pissed. So they're raising a ruckus in town, and the commissioners in 1895 finally decided to do something. They didn't actually come out and look at the building, determine a solution for the problems they were having. They did what politicians today do. They threw money in the general direction of the building and hoped it would shut everyone up. So 1895, they hire a contractor, and he comes out, and he's going to install what was then a brand new invention in the basement of the second asylum. So do any of you gentlemen have an idea of what 1895, what the new invention is?
No.
I'm going to promise that we all use it, and we all use it multiple times a day.
Toilet?
Flushing toilet. Indoor plumbing. So He installs a toilet. He runs the drain line from the building back through the ridge line, through the woods, and empties it into the creek that's back there. And our historian grew up here in Winchester, and he said when he was growing up, they never called that creek by its right name. Its right name is Salt Creek. He said the name they had for it also begins with an S, ends with a T, and has 4 letters. Anyway, so contractor does a job. 1896 rolls around, commissioners run into a new problem. While they can find someone who knows how to install a toilet, what they can't find is anyone who knows how to fix one. So 1896, the commissioners are forced to come out and look at this building. And when they arrive and they find the holes in the walls, the windows falling out, and 18 inches of raw sewage in the basement. That main drain line had broken and they couldn't find anyone who knew how to fix it. So at that point in time, they had to decide whether they were going to try to save that building or build a new one. And they obviously opted to build a new one because we're in it. But again, quick and cheap. To save money and get it up quickly, they shored up the original 1851 foundation and extended it to create the building that we're in today. So you can actually see where that extension begins down in the basement. It's pretty cool, actually. So this place opened in late December of 1899, and the residents who were in the other buildings simply packed up their stuff, came over here, picked a room, and settled in. And from 1899 until 2006, when the place closed, there were 1,487 people that called this place home. Now that number does include the superintendents and their families, and last we checked, Ted said we were looking at approximately 500 people who died here over the years. So this part of the building we call the superintendent section. So it's where you've got your command center across the hall. Used to be the superintendent's office where they maintained the records for the county farm and for the residents coming in and out. This area here was public space, and public space was for any family members coming in to greet, the residents. And they did the family gatherings up here for a couple of reasons. The first is because the rooms aren't big enough to have a family gathering of any size. And the second reason is that this place after 1919 was segregated by gender. So there's men's halls and women's halls. The other purpose this area serves actually involves another cost incurred by the county on top of maintenance and food and clothes and medical attention. It involves the witch's hat towers at the front of the building. And if you look over here, you see that there's a window seat that wraps it. So in the event that someone died here and they didn't have family to deal with the burial, the county was responsible for that. And so they would come in, they would lay the body out down here, because 1899 is still late Victorian period and people are terrified of being buried alive. If you're not embalming someone, can you be absolutely certain that they're dead? Probably not. So because the county commissioners are doing things on the cheap, they're not embalming people. So you can't be sure they're dead. So they bring the body down, they would lay it out on the table, and they get volunteers from among the residents to sit on that window seat overnight to watch the body to make sure they didn't wake up. It's where we get the term, some people want a funeral and others want a wake.
Yeah.
So they held wakes in this part of the building as well. So,
Is it?
That's smart.
That's
any
cool.
any questions about anything up to this point?
No, that's good.
Okay. I have to tell you about one of our residents up here. She doesn't like her story being told in her room. She would rather be remembered for her life, and I don't know a lot about her life. I know about her death. So out of respect for her, we tell her story up here. Her name is Ida Gunkel. That's Gunkel, Gunkel. And she was admitted to the asylum in 1936. Now, her husband had died 6 years before that of neurosyphilis. Apparently, he was a really friendly traveling salesman and a bit of a philanderer who brought home a present to his wife. Nice guy. So he dies in 1930. She has neurosyphilis, and her family is taken care of. By 1936, they can't do it anymore, and they bring her out here and they admit her. So she's on the second floor on the women's side originally when she comes in, but by 1938, her condition had gotten to a point where she would come out of her room screaming, pulling her hair, scratching herself, tearing off her clothes, defecating in strange places, and wandering around a 350-acre farm with no idea who she is, where she's going, or what's going on around her. It's a really, really dangerous situation. Well, the superintendents here wanted to take care of Ida, but they couldn't bring themselves to send her to a mental institution. Those are horrible places in the 1930s. So they decided they were going to try to take care of her here. So the solution they came up with was to move her down to the basement. So in the original foundation, for whatever reason, there was a room downstairs that has bars in the window. Don't know why, we can't find any records explaining it, but there's bars on the windows in this one room. So they moved Ida and all of her belongings down to that room. Every night at 10 o'clock, they'd go down and they'd lock the door. Every morning at 5 o'clock for wake up, they'd go down and they'd open the door and they'd let her out. During the night, they're sure that she's not going to get out and get on the grounds and get hurt. And during the day, everybody in the building knows what's going on, so they can help keep an eye on her. So they have her down there all of 1938 until August. And one night in August, when Mrs. Thornburg, who was the matron here, went down to tell Ida goodnight, Ida asked Mrs. Thornburg to bring her a broom. Well, Mrs. Thornburg is thrilled. The residents in here are supposed to be keeping their rooms clean, and half the time Ida's, not cognizant of anything. So she's excited that Ida's aware enough to ask her for a broom to clean her room. So she brings her the broom, tells her goodnight, locks the door, and goes to bed. And when she comes down in the morning, she finds that in the night Ida had taken that broom, put it over the pipes stretched across the ceiling down there, and had taken some of the ticking from her mattress and used it to hang herself. So I'll make sure you know where Ida's room is as we're going through, but we tell her story up here out of respect. So, any questions about anything so far?
No, perfect.
Amazing.
Okay, let's go. So we're still here at the front of the building. So we're in the superintendent section. They have a laundry room back there and a storeroom behind, workshop area. This set of stairs leads up to the superintendent's kitchen on the first floor. Now this is important, that the stairs come down onto the platform here, and from that platform you have a clear eye shot through the window into the space next door. Okay? That's important because for part of this place's history, this space wasn't intended for the superintendent's use. We all have this wonderful light, so I don't even need to get out my flashlight, which is great. If you look on the ground, you see there's a change in the coloration of the concrete. There's a channel that's been filled in, and it leads to the drain. So on this side of the channel down here, they used to have a small cell in the basement. So if someone was admitted to the asylum, had schizophrenia or some other kind of mental problem that made them violent to themselves or to others, they are not equipped to handle that here. The people who are running this place are not doctors. They are managers running a 350-acre farm and making sure everybody in here is provided for. Medical attention was brought in through the doctors paying house calls out here, and the old Randolph County Hospital is literally a mile down the road. So they're not providing medical attention here. They cannot handle people who are coming in who are violent. So they would bring them down and they would put them in the cell down here in the basement, and then they would call the state police. The state police would come and pick them up and take them to either Richmond or Muncie, depending on what facility had space for them. We don't have records saying they'd be down here for more than just a few hours before the police arrived, so this was never a long-term situation for anyone, but it is part of this place's history. Now, what happens, and this is less than a handful of occasions that we know of this happening, what happens if you have two people admitted at the same time who have violent tendencies? Do you put them in the cage together?
No.
Probably not. The second person didn't get quite as luxurious an accommodation. So you guys like Edgar Allan Poe?
Yeah.
Yeah? Casket of Amontillado is a personal favorite of mine. But if you look here on the wall, you'll see there's a bolt broken off, embedded in the plaster here. There's another one on the other side, and that's because the second person would be manacled until the state police arrived to take them.
That's nuts.
Asylum is a typical basement. So things you find in basements today, using for storage, furnaces down there, water utility crap, probably your electrical panels, laundry room maybe, that kind of stuff, using it for that. And that's what they were using the basement down here at the asylum for too. It's not used as residential space. You got 350-acre farm and all that produce they need space for. So it's storage down here mostly. So there are 3 exceptions to the basement being used as residential space. And the first exception is during World War II. During World War II, a lot of men are obviously being shipped overseas to fight, and the women and children being left behind. And back then, there's no direct deposit. They pay the soldiers directly. So if the families are going to get money, they have to mail it home. Now, if the guy happens to drink it away, gamble it away, or the boat gets sunk, families are going without. And there were women and children who were losing their homes who ended up in here. And because of the numbers of women and children arriving at various points in time, some of the men on the first floor were giving up their rooms and moving down here to the basement so the women and children would be above ground. So that's our first exception. The second exception we've already talked about. That's Ida. And Ida's room is right here. And I will let you go in and I will stay out of your way.
It's not very big, is it?
rooms, it doesn't matter where you're at in the building, slanted wall rooms are never used as a residential room. On the main floors, they're the medical rooms. Down here in the basement, we have a workshop, and across the hall, we've got a storage room. The other side of the slant is water, some kind of water usually. This side, it's the furnace room, other side, it's water heater, bathrooms on the main floors, okay? So, not used as a residential room. The reason we have the slanted walls is because if you look at the building, you guys were playing with the drone, weren't you?
Yeah.
So you know the shape of the building.
Yeah.
It's shaped like a cross.
Cross, yeah.
And this is where that cross beam is coming through. They're using it to take advantage of space. Okay? But the reason the building is shaped like a cross is because of our Constitution. It said that every county would establish a county home to care for the poor and indigent people to do the work of Christ. So a lot of county homes here in Indiana are shaped like a cross, and it's because of the wording of our state's Constitution. So this is a workshop. One of the residents who was here in the 1930s was named Walter Armstrong. And I think today we'd put him on the spectrum. He had antisocial behavior, obsessive compulsive tendencies, and sensory issues. So I think that puts him squarely as being autistic.
Yep.
Or borderline autistic or something
You're
along
really
those
talking
lines.
to three autistic people.
So, but Walter came in, and when you became a resident here, you were asked if you would like to help. You didn't have to work to be here. You could. A lot of residents did take on jobs. Who wants to sit in their room all day,
Yeah.
twiddling themselves? So a lot of residents did take on jobs, and Walter decided he was going to be the handyman here. So he liked working with his hands. He could be by himself. He didn't have to interact with people too terribly much. So he liked this idea. So he's the handyman here. So he spends a lot of time down here in the workshop. And one of the things he likes to do is indulge that obsessive compulsive tendency I talked about. If you look on the workbench, you can see nails, and across here, the face, the nails and screws, the nails and screws, the nails and screws, all across here, up. All of this is Walter. And they've actually captured SLS footage of a figure down here doing this.
Oh, wow.
And the door to this room, you heard it when I pulled it open. It drags.
Yeah.
It has a tendency to slam shut, just so you're aware. Now the other thing I like to point out in this room is behind us in the corner. Any ideas what this is?
Tin box, maybe?
A what?
Like somewhere to keep all the tools, or?
No.
Chimney, no?
Is that a boiler?
Nope. Not a chimney.
Boiler?
Nope.
Okay.
Oh, is it dumbwaiter?
No.
Closer.
Chute.
Laundry chute.
Oh, well, yeah, makes sense.
It's a laundry chute, but it's a laundry chute that leads to a workshop, which has never been a laundry room in a building where all the residents do their own laundry.
Yeah.
Clear as mud, right?
Yeah.
I promise I'll explain that. We gotta get up a floor for that. But I'll explain why that. The basement being used as resident space. And this space here is actually the third exception. So we have J.K. Rowling, the space under the stairs. If we come over here and look here. So if you do an etching of this, you can see the A really clearly, and there's a lot of A's engraved down here all over the place. But the A here is really clear. If you do an etching, it says Anthony 06. So in doing some research, we learned that in 1906, an African-American gentleman named Anthony Davis is admitted to the asylum. And when he comes in, he's asked like everybody else, would you like to work? And Anthony says, sure. And they give him the list of, the various jobs that he could do, and Anthony goes down the list and he says, that one. He decides that what he wants to do is to help keep the furnace and the water heater kept stocked with coal. Now, the furnace room is right there. And through those double doors is where the coal storage was. And the water heater is at the other end of the hallway here. Now, you guys have dealt with coal fires and peat fires, so you guys know that you have to check them all the time because if they go out, they're a booger to get started again. So he's got to check it day and night repeatedly. And he didn't want to run all the stinking stairs, and I don't blame him. So he actually made his bunk down here in the basement. And that was for convenience for his job. At no point in this place's history was it ever segregated by race, only by gender. We have records of African Americans, Native Americans, and Asian Americans on the floors with everybody else. And Randolph County was actually really progressive with race relations in the 1850s. It was actually started by Quakers who came here, who bought slaves in North Carolina and came here to free them, and then started the community here. The first 5 freedmen states in the state of Indiana were all in Randolph County, and the first fully integrated school, and when I say fully, I mean fully, black, white, and women. That school was also here in Randolph County. So really progressive with race relations, so Anthony's choice to be down here.
That's cool.
Can you do it again for us,
Yeah, sure.
please?
building. Then actually, if you're at this end of the attic, when somebody pulls that, it can almost blow your eardrums. It is loud.
Wow.
But that is the dinner bell. So it actually rang 5 times a day, not just for meals. It rang for wake up, breakfast, lunch, dinner, and lights out every day. And they actually tried getting rid of it. I said that, you know, this place ended its days as a nursing home. It was converted to the nursing home in the early 90s. And the superintendent at that time said that you're all adults. We're not doing the bell. We're not doing the segregated floors anymore. Just go forth an adult, you know. The residents actually raised hell until they brought back the bell and the segregation. It was part of the culture of this place. So it's because of that. It rang until the day the place closed, 5 times a day. So this space here is actually the men's dining room. So this is where the men would gather 3 times a day to eat their meals. And this is also where a lot of people find our resident crawler. Some people call them creepers, some people call them elementals. And we've got one in here. And it's knee-high, black, looks like a little black octopus. It's walls, ceilings, floor, and stuff like that. And it pretty much stays in this area and maybe in the kitchen and the women's dining room a little bit, but primarily in here. Actually see a picture of one of our more famous residents. And that is past Ida, Kate. This is Doris Addington. It's even written right on there, and I'm still getting it wrong. Doris Addington. So Doris Addington was admitted to the asylum when she was 11 years old. So when she was 2 or 3, she got kicked in the head by a mule, and it gave her a lifelong stutter. And a lot of people mistook her for being slow because of the stutter. They thought she had some kind of mental deficiency because of it. So when she was 11 and her parents lost custody, her older sisters thought that Doris's speech impediment would prevent them all from being adopted together. So they brought 11-year-old Doris out here to the asylum, left her on the front steps, and then headed to the county orphanage together. So Doris admitted when she's 11. And she comes in, she fills out the paperwork with the superintendent, and the superintendent asks her if she would like to help. And he says, yeah, sure, you know, I'd love to help. And being a man and looking at a little 11-year-old girl, he's probably thinking in his head, chambermaid, dusting, cleaning, sweeping, that kind of stuff. Not Doris. Doris looked that man dead in the face and said, I know how to cook, and I'm going to be the cook here. And I don't know what it was about that little girl, but he said, okay. And he brought her downstairs and he introduced her to Mary, who was the head cook here at the asylum. And he said, Mary, you've got a new apprentice. So Doris kicks in. She's working here as Mary's apprentice. And when she was 14 or 15 years old, Mary died. So Doris took on the duties of being the head cook here at the asylum. And when she was 21, she signed herself out. She moved in with her older brother. And within a year, she had come back out here to the asylum and readmitted herself. She said that this place was home and it was here that she was making a difference. So she lived out the rest of her life here. She was 84 when she died. So for more than 70 years, at every meal prepared in this place, Doris had a hand in making. So make no mistake, this is Doris's kitchen. One of our more active presences here at the asylum. She's been audibly heard telling people hello and asking who's there. Her apparition has been seen. Great EVP sessions down here, spirit box sessions, flashlight set, you name it. Doris is fun.
I can feel her. So I can feel the energy, like a full on.
Now, one of the things that is original to the asylum is this over here in the corner. So this started its days in 1899 here as the icebox. It looks more like a sauna to me than an icebox. This was the icebox, so the original freezer here at the asylum. And that little brick building outside, that's the original refrigerator. That's a spring house. So when they electrified the building in the late teens and in the early 1920s, they had the international company come out and convert the freezer into an electric refrigerator, and then they purchased an electric freezer, which is further down the hall. So sort of a weird link to Ireland. So this is the original water heater here at the asylum. It's a cast iron coal-fired water heater. It's forged in Fort Wayne, Indiana. Not forged, it was cast in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and then brought out here. Now we know this is definitely original because the Lookout Company that made this changed their logo after World War I for some strange reason. They decided they didn't want the Iron Cross as their logo anymore. Whatever. So that got changed. But the Lookout Company is the same company that made the boilers that were on the Titanic, which set sail from.
Yeah. Or,
Yeah, that's pretty cool, actually.
There's your link.
I like it. I like it.
What you don't know about this space is whether it was segregated too. Whether men had certain times and women had alternating times to come down and do laundry, or if you needed to do laundry, you just came down and took care of it. So that's the one thing we don't know about this space, but this is the residence laundry room. This is the room I like, because I am a nerd and I like history, and I can see the history written on the wall in front of me. So you see here, there's a window filled in, and then in the corner over there, you see the door filled in, right?
Yeah.
And if you look at the keystone of the door,
Oh, yeah.
oh, you can see, yeah.
okay, what we're looking at is the original exterior of the 1851 asylum. So this is where the extension begins. Really easy to see because we've got the limestone and the brick. So this is 1851 and that's 1899, okay? The gray building behind the asylum is a slaughterhouse. They raised livestock here, they killed them, they ate them. So they slaughtered them out back, and in 1851, the halves and quarters were taken through that door into the space next door when they finished the butchering process. In 1899, when this building opened, they had a dirt floor down here in the basement, and they knew that space had been used for butchering. So rather than contaminate another space down here in the basement, they continued to use next door for the butchery. Now, the Masons mark on the keystone. The Masons were involved in the building of the first asylum here in Randolph County, and they actually used it for their lodge meetings because they didn't finish building their lodge in town until 1856. So they held lodge meetings out here as well. Okay, so we're gonna go right around the corner and into, we call it the meat room. So back over here in the corner is one of the very few artifacts that remains from the 1851 asylum. This is the original butcher block here. Pretty neat, I think. And you can see on the walls where they could have had shelves and things like that, and places to hang up the knives and saws that they need for butchering, and the hooks to hang the halves and quarters. So they would bring your pig quarter in here, put it on the board, cut it into pork chops, wrap them in paper, and then they put them in the freezer. Now we've got Bobsicle and Bob in here because we call this the meat room for another reason, not because of the butchering going on in here, but because in the late 1920s here in Randolph County, this room served as a makeshift morgue during a cholera outbreak. So 1920s, how much do you guys know about cholera?
Not much.
Not much. Okay. Here in the States, it's primarily a summer disease because you get it from drinking water that's been contaminated by pig poo. Delightful stuff. And in the summers when they let the pigs out to run, and that's how the water ends up being contaminated, because the pigs running, fattening them up for butchering season in the fall. So it's primarily a summer disease. Back then it had about a 60% mortality rate. It is really fast acting, highly contagious. It is dysentery on steroids. You poo yourself to death. Okay? It's ugly stuff. We only had 3 undertakers serving the entirety of Randolph County in the 1920s. They can't keep up with the body count because it's not just cholera victims. You got Uncle Joe who died of a heart attack you got to deal with too. So they made an arrangement between the superintendents here, the county commissioners, and the ambulance services that any overflow of bodies that they had that they couldn't deal with in the moment, they brought them out here to the asylum, they brought them to this room, and they stacked them up along the wall between these 2 doors. Then the undertakers pulled what they had left together of their budgets to purchase an embalming table, which they brought out here. And when they had time, they would come out here, they would embalm the bodies in this room, and then wrap them in paper and put them in the freezer with the pork chops. Which grosses, the look on your face, most people get really grossed out by that. I don't have a problem with that so much. They're draining most of the contagion out of the body. So what's going in there isn't going to be much. However, the freezer's going to kill anything left. In the meantime, it's summertime here at the asylum, and we have got a pile of bodies stewing in the summer heat that are contaminated and are contagious. Now, during that period of time they were using this as a makeshift morgue, there were 3 elderly women here at the asylum who died. The county tried to say they were died of food poisoning, which is utter baloney. If they had died of food poisoning, it's going to be 3 people dead, 40 people yakking their guts out. And that's not what's going on. Everybody else in this building is fine. We have elderly women. They have compromised immune systems by virtue of their age, and we are on the women's side of the building. So if they're going to go eat, we're walking past bodies. You see the vents in the doors?
Yeah.
And then I'm walking back to my room. Oh crap, I gotta go do my laundry too. And I'm walking past again. They picked up cholera, they died of it, and the county tried to cover it up because they were using this as a cash cow. Because Uncle Joe that died of a heart attack, his family's got a little bit of money. So they slip him a little bit of lolly, and he gets pushed to the head of the line for the embalming process out here. When the newspapers found out what was going on, they came out and took some photos, and those photos show bodies stacked up to about here. That's what finally brought an end to this place being used as a makeshift morgue, and it also brought 18 inches of concrete to the basement here at the Randolph County Asylum. So all that contagion is now sealed beneath our feet.
Wow.
Crazy.
I was going to say the floor looked pretty new.
Yeah, don't do anything too crazy to the floor. Up to this point, I can document. We have newspaper articles, we've got photographs, we've got county records, we've got police records, we've got paper. We can prove it. This room, I can't. This room, the stories coming out of this room are all found in diaries, talking about the same kind of event. Residents' diaries, family members' diaries of a woman being raped here during World War II. She was gang raped and later died of her injuries. I can't prove that it happened. When it's being in several diaries or telling the same story, I think that lends some credence to it, but I cannot legally document it for you. So I have to tell you that I can't prove it, but there are stories that this happened in this room. And I know a lot of people their sensitives have some problems in here. So just so you're aware, okay? Anything else that we come across that I can't document, I will make sure that you know that. Keep that in mind as you're going through, okay? So you have the foot of the cross, superintendent section. Then the main beam of the cross is these 2 long parallel hallways. Then we have the cross beams where Christ's hands would have been. Those are chapels here on the 1st and 2nd floor. There are 4 chapels in this building. Okay. Christ's head is a community room of some kind. Dining room down in the basement, community day rooms, rec rooms, whatever you want to call them here on the 1st and 2nd floor. Okay. And that's how you can navigate. So if you're confused where you're at, get a long hallway, head to one end. You're either going to end up at the foot of the cross or the head of the cross. Easy. Then if you're confused of which side of the building you're on, men or women's side, get in a residence room, look out the window. If you can see where you parked your car, you're on the men's side of the building. Boys and toys. Stupid mnemonic, makes it easy to remember though. Okay? Right now we're on the women's side of the building still, and we are in the residential section. So when the place opened in 1899, this place is not segregated. If you came in as a family, you stayed together as a family. So as we get down here, you can see the first room here on the women's floor. You'll see when they started segregating the place in 1919, this became the women's side of the building because the kids would stay with mom up to a certain age. This room here is one of those children. So this room here belonged to a little boy named Noah, who was admitted to the asylum in 1943 during the height of World War II. He and his mother came here. They'd lost their home. They came here. This was their room. Noah was 8 years old when he arrived here at the asylum. He contracted measles and he passed when he was 9. So this is Noah's room. Now Noah is notorious for draining batteries, and he really likes things that light up and make noise. Okay, so this is Noah's room. All right, nobody's having a heart attack over the dolls?
No.
Okay, I'm glad to hear that. We do have a lot of people who get freaked out by dolls. We have comic relief in here for them.
Oh, Jesus.
And they're doing good. They've made over $100 for the asylum so far, so they're working that pool well. So we are in a room with a slanted wall, as you can see. So that means we're in a medical room. And this is the room that Doris Addington, our cook from downstairs, this is the room she passed away in. This was not her residential room. The last couple of weeks she was alive, she was fighting H1N1, which converted to pneumonia. And she refused to let them send her to the Randolph County Hospital for treatment. She wanted to be treated here. So they brought her to the medical room, and then when they brought her in here, she asked for a doll collection to come in here with her. Now, Doris was really well loved here at the asylum, and she was also really well loved through the whole community here. She used to help with church events and school events, and apparently her green bean casserole recipe for large groups is still highly coveted here in Randolph County. So she's really well loved, but she would never let anybody pay her. But they knew she collected dolls, so she had a huge doll collection. The dolls that you see here on the bottom shelf, they belong to Doris.
Wow.
The others have been added by people we like to call repeat offenders who bring gifts for Doris, and by my boss who looks for dolls to mess with people who don't like dolls because he's kind of sadistic that way. So some people do try to contact Doris in here with mixed results. Really, Doris's home here at the asylum wasn't even her residential room, it was the kitchen here. By any stretch of the imagination, if you want to go to town to the church and denomination of your choice, you are welcome to do that. In fact, a lot of residents actually got jobs. You know, a family come in because dad lost his job, they lost their house, they end up in here. Dad's here for a couple of months helping on the farm. He gets work on the outside because he's used this place as a reference. Gets a new job, he goes to work every day, comes back here and stays. And they save up their money until they can get a place of their own again and get back out and back on their feet. So that's a lot of the people that came through here. This was what they were doing. So it's a stopgap measure, okay, for a lot of people. So men's rec room, first floor. These rooms would have been set up with tables, chairs, couches, books, puzzles, radios and televisions after those were invented. This was a place to come and hang out and relax for the guys. Only rule in here, no women allowed. So they come in and smoke and drink and, you know, tell lies to each other, whatever men do. Out the back window, you can get a good view of the slaughterhouse.
Oh yeah.
So that gray building is the slaughterhouse.
Yeah.
And then out the side window here, I'm going to show you where it is because we're not going to walk all the way out there. So you see the white garage?
Yeah.
Okay, so as we're looking at it to the right, okay, so on the ground to the right of it, extending back about 150 feet, that's the unmarked graveyard on the grounds. Remember I told you up front they hold banks?
Yeah.
Well, the people who died, who didn't have family, weren't embalmed, they got a pine box, and they're put in an unmarked graveyard. And that's where the unmarked graveyard is back there. So there are 51 people who are buried out there, and a mummy.
What do you mean a mummy?
I promise a mummy. I swear to you. So,
A mummy, like a rock mummy?
like a rat mummy.
Really?
Really, promise me. I'll tell you the story. It's a very silly story, but it's true. We have the newspaper articles that tell us this, so I can document this for you. So the 1930s here in the US is the Great Depression. So people are out of work, they're looking for, we're gonna use the word creative instead of illegal, creative ways to make money, okay? And these two gentlemen from Ansonia, Ohio, which is about a 45-minute drive from here, learned about an elderly black man named Mose who had passed away and his body had gone unclaimed. He didn't have any family, so the county is holding on to this guy's body. And the county's hoping somebody's gonna come and claim him so they don't have to deal with the burial expenses. So these two yahoos go to the county, they tell them that they're there to do their Christian duty, and they're going to take care of Mr. Mose. So the county's like, great, here's the paperwork, sign right there. So they sign Mr. Mose over to these two idiots, who promptly wrap him up in linens and start driving him around like a carnival sideshow to all the little towns in this area, charging 10 cents a head to see the authentic Egyptian mummy.
What the hell?
So after 2 months of driving around in the summertime with this poor man in the back of their car, they reach Winchester, where they set up, and they're not only enterprising little boogers, they're bold. They set up on the courthouse lawn. And by this point in time, Mr. Mose is getting a little, we'll use the word ripe. He's making people physically ill to be in his presence. So the sheriff got called, and the sheriff took the two yahoos to jail, and they brought Mr. Mose, the mummy, to be interred here at the Randolph County Asylum in the Potter's Field. So there are 51 people and a mummy buried out there, I promise. And we have his room set up with a bed, a chair, a trunk, and a dresser. And you can go in and you can see the rooms are by no means spacious, but even with all that furniture in there that you'd want as living quarters, it's a comfortable space. So that was John's room for 75 years.
Wow. It's not a tiny room, like it's still not massive, but it's still nice, like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like just right if you get
Yeah. Now the last two rooms here on the men's side, these rooms are double rooms, so they're twice as wide. So if they needed extra space for families before the segregation started, they could put them in the rooms over here. After segregation started, if a family came in and it's a man and a couple of teenage sons, Dad could have his boys with him in the same room. So they still served as family rooms when necessary, but after the segregation started, but for most time, it was just a double room with two men in them. And this room is the same. Every family that came in could adapt the space to their own needs. There it is.
That's like the house of Doris, isn't it? It's like
This is weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like wing.
Yeah.
So we're going in the first room.
Oh yes, yes.
Oh yeah.
Yes. Very good for the staff. It's not over here.
So this room here, you can see that there's actually a wall that got taken down. They put a wall up in the 1970s, but originally this was one space when the place opened. We took it down for Mother's Day as a present to the resident here. So this room belonged to a young lady named Lulu Woods. Now Lulu was admitted to the asylum in 1914. And she was admitted with her stepdad. It was just her and the stepdad, don't know where Mom was. But at that point in time, you came in as a family, you stayed together as a family. So Lulu and her stepdad have a room together, and Lulu became pregnant. She is 14 years old. So stepdad went to jail, and Lulu gave birth to her first child here at the asylum. This room served as a nursery for Lulu and the baby. Okay. Now, Lulu was here, she was here 7 times over the course of her life. And the first time she was here from the age of 14 to 21 or 22. So 7, 8 years is how long she was here. And then after that, she was in here another 6 times, anywhere from 3 to 18 months at a time. But that first time that she was here, she gave birth to an additional 2 illegitimate children. And we believe all of them were because of violence perpetrated against her. She became pregnant in 1919 with number 3. And because of that, they knew what was going on. Lulu had problems, and we're not sure whether it's because of giving birth at that young at an age or if it was just the repeated abuse she'd been going through. She was really vulnerable to men and a victim of men her whole life. So after the 3rd pregnancy came to light, they segregated this place. And it was to protect other women from having to go through what Lulu was going through. So Lulu has her 3rd child here at the asylum. She's got all 3 babies in here with her in the nursery. Before she was discharged, the state declared her incompetent to care for the kids. They took them away. They sent them to the county orphanage. Now, all 3 of the children were adopted by the same family out of Muncie, Indiana. Their last name was Howell, and it is very unusual. Mr. Howell and Mr. Howell, who adopted the children, insisted that the adoption paperwork gave Lulu parental rights. And they went even further than just allowing her parental rights. They wrote into the paperwork that twice a month they would drive from Muncie to Winchester on a weekend so Lulu could spend time with her kids. Incredible family. So the kids grew up, they knew their mother. Lulu died when she was 56 years old. She is buried at Fountain Park Cemetery here in Winchester under the name Lulu Schultz in the Potter's Field. So it is an unmarked grave. She has a very nice tree right by her though, so that's nice. So her death certificate shows that the victimization by men had not ended. She's 56 years old when she dies. She dies of a heart attack, but at the time of her death, she had heavy vaginal bleeding and bruising. So it's because of Lulu that the place is segregated. It was to protect women from violence against them. And for most of this place's history, that worked. As I said, it became part of the culture of this place. World War II is an exception. And World War II is an exception because we have the reports of that rape down in the basement and another up in the attic during that time period. Now, I'll tell you a little bit about the World War II era. Now, some of what I know as fact.
Right, oh, it's
Other pieces of what I know are from those diaries. So let's go with facts first. Fact number 1, there's a judge living here during World War II. He was admitted in the 1930s. Fact number 2, there are 3 men for sure and possibly a fourth who were admitted to the asylum during World War II, not because they were infirm or poor or handicapped. They were admitted because they'd been found ineligible for the draft because they were drunks. Now, when you've got 9/10 of your young men being shipped overseas to fight in a war they might not come back from, and you get to get out of it because you like to tip the bottle a little bit, you're a social pariah. Nobody in this town wanted anything to do with them. They can't get work, they can't do anything. And they ended up out here with people who, I am sorry to say, I'm sorry everyone! They are third and fourth class citizens. And nobody gives a damn about them. And they end up out here with people who are vulnerable. And they took advantage of the situation. So, those diaries talk about reports of thefts, of assaults, of the rapes that we talked about, and various other crimes, including a couple of possible murders happening here at the asylum. None of it was ever investigated by the police. I do not have any legal documentation of any of this. As I said, I do have the diaries, which lend some credence to the stories. Now, a lot of people are rather appalled that the police didn't come out to investigate. There's a couple of reasons for that. Number one, this place is not going to be a high priority, even in the best of times, because of who the people that are living here are. And the second reason is, you've got 3/4 of the police force gone. They don't have the manpower to come out here. They were left to their own devices. So, as I said, we did have a judge living here. So the judge was admitted to the asylum in the 1930s. He came here. This was his retirement plan. That sounds weird, I know. But he doesn't have any family, and he said if he came to live out here, he would have a roof over his head, 3 meals a day, and all the company he could ever want. So he went to the county commissioners, talked to them, and convinced them to let him move out here and pay his own way to be here. This is literally his retirement plan. So he moves in here in the 1930s. Now he's a judge, so he's an elected official. He has powerful friends, lots of connections. He's hearing rumblings that the U.S. could become involved in World War II. He's worried. He's worried about people, he calls them undesirables. He's worried about them being admitted. He's worried about them causing problems. So he went to the superintendent and explained what he was concerned about. The superintendent agreed. They went to the sheriff. And the 3 of them put their heads together, and the sheriff said, listen, I'm not going to have the manpower. If we end up in a war, I'm telling you now, most of my guys are going to volunteer and go. I won't have the manpower to help you. You need a solution out there for troublemakers. So they came up with a solution. Now the solution is right around the corner, but we're down here at the end of the hall, so I'm just going to explain something real quick. So this is the same as the floor below. We've got the chapel and the restrooms, community room, and then through onto the men's side, community room, chapel, restrooms. Now, the solution for troublemakers is right there.
Gotcha. Oh, is this the cell, is it? Yeah, we were in this room earlier.
So this was purchased from the Randolph County Sheriff's Department in 1940 and installed in the medical room on the men's side second floor. It was installed in the medical room because all the medical rooms had toilet facilities. So they could move the toilet into the cell. The cell was used during World War II. And they used it in the 1990s when they tore down the jail in town to build a new one. They used this as the county drunk tank apparently in the 90s. Welcome to Randolph County. So, John Oliver Champ is here during World War II. He is 84 years old in 1943. He is here at the same time as the troublemakers, and he has what I like to call grouchy old man syndrome. He does not appreciate the shenanigans that are ongoing out here, and he has no problem with going to the superintendent or the judge and telling them what he's hearing about what's going on. And he also has no problem with going straight to the troublemakers and telling them to their faces that he thinks that they're idiots and telling them off. He's not winning a lot of friends. So in September of 1943, it is fall house cleaning time. So every resident in this building is supposed to clean their rooms. They're supposed to wash their windows inside and out. Now John is 84. We're on the second floor. John is not going to climb a ladder to wash the outside of his window. Now he's been here a few times before, different periods of time. It's always been when he's been older. So he has an arrangement with the superintendent of do the best you can kind of a thing. So John's method of doing the best he can to clean the outside of the window is to sit backwards on the sill, open the window, sit backwards, scoot back, close the window over his lap, and wash from the outside up as high as he can reach. He's been doing this every time that they have spring and fall house cleaning, every time he's out here. This is his system. And the superintendent's happy with it because John's doing the best he can within his means. And John's happy because he doesn't have to climb a stinking ladder. So this is what John is doing in September of 1943, and things were going just fine until two people came in, opened the window, and dropped him off the side of the building. And again, I cannot prove it to you. His death certificate says that he died of an accidental fall at the Randolph County Asylum, which is fine. However, the superintendent, his family still has his old diary. And that diary said that he had spent the morning at the big barn just over there. And it was going to be lunchtime, so he was coming across the grounds, and he says, I saw Champ fall, and I saw two people walk away from the window. So you tell me what you think happened.
Crazy.
We on occasion will have someone who's special and who's going to do this by themselves. And I think they're nuts, but whatever makes you happy. So this gentleman is coming. He is going to spend the night here by himself. He meets Ted, our historian, at 6 o'clock. Ted does the tour with him. Now, it's just the two of them, so Ted is amazing. He is a storyteller galore and just wonderful. But it's just the two of them, so they get to yakking. And it was 9:45 before Ted left. And when he left, he gave the guest his card and said, if you need anything, call me. So Ted goes home. 11:30 that night, Ted's phone rings. This is what the guest had to say. I was fine with the footsteps in the stairs, and I was fine with the whispers in the halls. But when I was outside of Champ's cell and I'm working down towards the jail cell and something came up behind me, grabbed me by my elbow and started walking down the hall with me, yeah, I think I'm done now and I'm going home. Now, to his credit, he did come back about 3 weeks later to try it again, but he did bring 3 friends with him. Here at the asylum is serving the same purpose as the basement. It's being used for food storage and preservation. It's nice up here today. As we get further into harvest season, it starts getting a lot hotter and a lot drier up here, which makes it the perfect area for preserving different vegetables and herbs and things like that. And you can actually see the drying racks over here that they used to dry popcorn on. So you just leave it up here until it dries and falls out of the cobs, and then you just shake it and put a sheet underneath to catch the kernels. So food preservation and storage. Now, originally, the roof here was that slate shingle roof, right? And you look at the wood here. See the color of the wood? How bright it is compared to the stuff further down? So it's this big rectangle. And that's because originally there were dormers with windows that ran the length of the attic on both sides. So this place was used to be really, really bright, really lit up. So they would let the kids come up here and play. And this space is huge. Can you imagine Tag up here? Red Rover? Red Rover. Great space for kids. So we have people that experience children up here in the attic a lot of times.